Al-Kadosh, Boker or Masechet Kiddushin Daf Bet Amud Aleph 22a1. Says the Gemara, Tanu Rabbanan, we learned in a Braita. Im Amor Yomar HaEved. Right? If right now you're going to come and tell the Eved, Ad Shiomar V'yishne. What does that mean? Ad Shiomar HaEved, right? V'yishne. And he's going to say it another time as well. Right? Which means that he has to say it twice. That's what it means. Amor Yomar. Amor Yomar means that you're not going to come and do the piercing until he says it twice. Amar betchilat shesh, v'lo amar besof shesh. If he said at the beginning of the 6th hour, and sorry,
6-year term.
6-year term, sorry, and he didn't say it at the end of the 6-year term. Yeah, he comes and he says, right? Eno nirtza. He's not going to be nirtza. Right? Shneimar, but says lo yetze choshi ad shiomar b'shat yitzia. It has to be the time when he's going out of the 6th year, meaning at the beginning of the 6 years. No, not. It's at the beginning and the end. Amar b'sof shesh, but what if he only did it at the end and didn't say at the beginning? Eno nirtza shneimar imamor imar eved shiomar keshu eved. He still has to say it when he's a slave. Meaning he has to say it when he's a slave. If he's not a slave, it doesn't help. So Amar more says, Amar betchilat shesh, v'lo amar b'sof shesh. If you only did it at the beginning of the 6 years and not the end, nirtza, eno nirtza is not going to be pierced. Shneimar lo yetze choshi. My idiom lo yetze choshi. How do we know that it's not lo yetze choshi? Tepukle debainam, because we need ahavti tazrit ishti bebanai beleka. What does that mean? At the beginning of the term, he doesn't have any shel banim. He doesn't have a wife and children because the master still did not give him the shivcha kananit. So therefore, he cannot say that. Right? That's going to be question number 1. And number 2, also the 2, imamar b'sof shesh. If he only said at the end, he didn't say at the beginning. Eno nitzar shneimar ha'eved. At the end of the 6 years, he's not an eved. Even on the last day, he's still an eved. So it's a problem. So Amar Rava says, b'tchilat pruta acharona. We're talking about that there's still a value of a pruta that he's still able to buy himself out. B'sof pruta acharona. We're talking about the last pruta acharona. Ha'eved. That's what we're actually saying. Ha'eved, meaning that at the end of the day, it says ha'eved twice to teach you that there's still a pruta worth of service, meaning that he could still work worth something. Meaning the work is still worth $1. You know, there has to be something worth something. Okay? So Tanu Rabbanan, we learned to the Braita, right? Lo isha ubanim, if he has a wife and children, and what happens if he has a wife and children, but the master does not have a wife and children? Eno nirtza, he's not going to be pierced with a year. Shneimar says, I love you and your house, which means you don't have betecha, because it has to be that the entire house has to be that the guy's married. Remember, the house of a person is your wife also. See, the entire house. Person without a wife doesn't have a house, right? So he says, but what happens if the master has a wife and children, and he does not have a wife and children? Also in a nirtza. It says, it has to be also his wife and children, and he doesn't have it. It means that he loves his master, but his master doesn't love him, right? That's going to be another case. Eno nirtza, also it's not going to be nirtza. Why? It has to be good with you. Which means that if the master does not love him, it doesn't work.
The master doesn't have a wife and kids. You can't do right say.
No, because it says ahavti et adoni et ishti vet banai. My wife and my children. The master, right? He doesn't have a wife and children, right? And not only that, even if it is that the master loves him, but he doesn't. But the master, sorry, if he loves the master, but the master doesn't love him, also the same thing. Why? Kitov lo amach, to be good to you. It means the master has to mamash love you. But what happens opposite? What happens if the master loves him, but he doesn't love the master? Also in a nitzah. Because he loves him. And it's not true. What happens if he's chole, but Rabbo no chole? He's sick, but the master's not sick. Eno nitzah. Shneimar ki tov lo imach. Has to be good. This comes to exclude a chole, that he's not good. He's sick. But if the master's chole and he's not chole, also eno nitzah. Shneimar imach. Has to be like you. Which means these are basically just different concepts that they have to be on the same page. And being on the same page means that they're both not sick, they both love each other, they both have a wife and children, that they both have, that's the concept. Okay? Next. Says the Gemara, Bae Rav Bevai, asks Rav Bevai, Barabaye, Shneim Cholim, what happens if they're both sick? Here you don't have a deficiency. They're both sick. So you're not going to say one is sick and one is not sick. They're both sick. So what are you going to do then? So says the Gemara, right? He says, Imach ba'inam veika. At the end of the day, you need imach. And imach means with you. And you have it. There's no problem. Right? Odilma maybe kitov lo imach, right? Ba'inam galeka. You don't have kitov lo imach. So says the Gemara, zas bito. Not just enough imach with you. It's be tov, it's be good. Take, we don't have an answer. Fine. 2 dots. The 2 dots says, Tara Rabbanan, we learned in the Braita. Ki tov lo imach. What does it mean? Imach? Imach b'ma'achal, imach b'mishteh. Shelo te'eh ata ochel pat nekiya vehu ochel pat kippah. Cannot be that he's eating and drinking, that he's getting the good stuff and he's giving the slave, all the bad stuff. It doesn't work. Right? Ata shoteh yain yashan, vehu shoteh yain chadash. Or he's drinking the old wine, he's drinking new wine. So yoshen gabe mochi, yoshen gabe teven. From here we say, if you're going to acquire for yourself an Eved, it's like you're acquiring an Adon to yourself. Right. Okay, Tan Rabbanan, we learned in the Braita. What is that referring to? That he comes out. If he's going to be sold, is his children going to be sold with him? For sure not. Which means, right? So therefore, why does it say that they go out with him? They were never sold.
You're talking about the servant he came in with, or the servant he acquired?
No. Meaning like this: you have right now. It says that the slave goes out, him and his children. Now, says Rabbi Shimon, 1 second. If a person sells himself as a slave, his children are not sold.
Right, they usually stay home with them.
Exactly. So therefore, why would it say
money for
that
his
kids? But why are they taking it out then? Why are they going out? So he says, you're right. It means that as long as he's an Eved, the master is obligated to come and give them to eat.
Right, he pays them.
He pays them. That's what he has to pay. Just like you see at Omer, what if he's sold? The wife is sold. You're right, it's not sold. The wife is obligated also to mizrot of the wife. Meaning the master has to pay the parnasah of the wife and children.
We're not talking about a Canaanite wife.
No, we're talking about a Jewish slave. Yeah. A Jewish slave. Okay? And says the Gemara, tzricha. You need both cases. You need also with the children, also with the wife. Why? The Ishmael and Berah, they was only bringing to the children, because they can't work. She can work and she can make parnasah. I would say let her work and then they remain. No, you don't say that. She's also going to get fed from the master. The Ishmael, if it was only written in the wife, because she doesn't go to start asking tzedakah. Aval Banava, the children, that they could go ask for tzedakah. Imam would say, no, tzricha, that's what they need it. Tan Rabbanan, we learned in a Braita.
Not for the faint of heart, Jackie. This guy goes.
Yeah. Kavbet Amud Bet. 22b. Yeah, to be or not to be. Yeah, 2. So he says over like this. If it was written in the pasuk that you have to place the ear on the door, which means that you're going to do it on the other side of the hole, right? Where it is, delet in beoznolo, but only in the hole, in the door, but not an actual ear, right? That means you're actually doing it in the door, but not in the actual ear. So says the Gemara, no. It says written that you have to do it in the ear. Rather, I would say you're first going to do it on the outside. Right?
The door or the pole of the door?
The pole of the door. Okay. Pole of the door, like the door post.
Yeah.
Right? And you're going to place it and then you're going to put it in the door also as well. Okay? Because that's what it understands. Which means that I would have thought to say that at the beginning he's going to do it on the ear, not on the door. And then you put it by the door, and then you also do it by the door. Says, no, you don't do it that way. There was no uva delit. That's the aketzad. You have to continue going until you go to the door. Meaning, I would have thought to say you do it in the air, right? And then when it goes through, you put it on the door, and then you continue going. Sometimes you do that. Like you have a piece of wood, you'll put it through the wood, and now that you already have a wood, now you put it somewhere else, and you continue going. You already have it to the first one. So I would have thought to say you do the same thing with Evid. Says no, you put it right by the door, and you start the thing. You continue going until it goes through the ear, and then continue going until it goes through the door. So delet shomyani. So when I say a door or a door post, it can mean any type of a door, even if it's not actually on the ground. Meaning just done.
It's not attached.
Yeah, it's not attached to the house. That's what you would think, right? So he comes. Talmud Lomar mezuzah. Ma mezuzah meumad avdel lam. Has to be standing.
Yeah, there is a connection with the mezuzah.
So says the Gemara right now. He says, "Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakkai yadoresh et mikra zeh." So Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakkai used to make this derasha on this pasuk. Kemin chomer, exactly the way that it's supposed to be. Why is it that the ear is different than all the membranes in the body? Says the ear that heard my voice on Har Sinai when I said Kili b'nei Yisrael avadim velo avadim lavadim, which means that my children are for me slaves and not slaves for slaves. And then he went and he acquired for himself a master. So yeah, that's it. So that's why you're going to pierce the ear. Meaning you're piercing the ear because the ear was the one that went against the command. The ear heard, I said, you're my slave. And now you're going to become a slave to somebody else. So for what happens? So he comes and he says, so that's going to happen. Rabbi Shimon bar Rabbi Yehuda, right? Rabbi Shimon bar Rabbi yaduresh tamikra zeh, k'milchom menishta delet umezuzah. Why the delet umezuzah? Mikol ken shel bait. Hakadosh Baruch Hu delet umezuzah shayu edim b'Mitzrayim. You have your answer, Bahaki. The delet and the mezuzah, they were the edim in Mitzrayim. They were the witnesses in Mitzrayim. When I jumped over the mashkof and the shtem mezuzot, and I told them, Ki li b'nei Yisrael avadim, ve'lo avadim lavadim. And then I went and I took them out into liberation. I took them out to freedom. Remember that in Mitzrayim, what happened? When we were going to go to Mitzrayim, they had to put on the doorposts the blood of the Kol Pesach. And because of that, and I jumped over them and I told them, you guys are my slaves from now on. You're never the slaves of the Egyptians or anybody else. So if you right now, so therefore the delet and the mezuzah was the siman, was the witnesses that this is what I said. So because of that, you pierce his ear, because his ear heard it and he didn't pay attention to it, and the mezuzah and the delet because of what happened, that they were the witnesses. Says the Mishnah of Bet Amubet. Says the Mishnah, Eved Kenani nikne bekesef. An Eved Kenani is going to be acquired with kesef, v'shtar v'chazaka. The konet atzmon is going to acquire himself with kesef through other people. Okay, uvishtar le'atzmo, document to himself. These words are mir. Chachamim said no, but kesef le'atzmo, kesef through himself, and shtar through other people. That they're basically going to accept upon himself that. As long as the money belongs to somebody else. Says the Gemara, Menala. How do we know that an Eved Kenani could be acquired through money, document, and chazakah? There's a kesh, there's a juxtaposition, makish. Just like Sedeh Chuzah is going to be acquired with kesef shtar and chazakah, so too an Eved Kenani is going to be acquired with kesef shtar and chazakah. So says the Gemara, if the Sedeh Chuzah is going to go back to the masters, right, going to go back to Yovel, so to Eved Kenani should also go back to the Ba'alim during Yovel, right? Meaning if you're already making a kesh to Sedeh Chuzah is a property that had an inheritance. It goes back in Yovel. So Eved Kenani should also go back in Yovel. And so the Gemara, you work them forever. What does that mean? It's a pasuk. And that means you don't go. That means the pasuk teaches you that you don't learn the sekesh, that you'll go free during Yovel. Tana, and we learned in a Braita, Afpa Chalipin. Also, an Eved Kenani could be acquired through Chalipin, which is not only Kesef Shana Chazakah, Chalipin. Chalipin means I give you one thing and
to be worth less than a pruta. Lift it up.
Yes. Okay. The Tana Didan, and our Tana taught also, Minta delete mentaltalim. We only talk about things that have nothing to do with mentaltalim. Minta delete mentaltalim, but something that has to do with mentaltalim, we don't know, which means like this. Just like, right, you could do with mentaltalim, Chalipin. So that's why we were only learning things which have nothing to do with mentaltalim. And we didn't want to mention something which could be used as mentaltalim. That's why we didn't learn Chalipin, even though it does help. Okay, Amar Shmuel. Shmuel says, Eved Kenani is also nikneh b'meshicha. You could drag him, just like an animal. You know, you take an animal, you drag him. That's called meshicha. You're pulling forth. So an Eved Kenani is going to be acquired with meshicha. Case said, what's the case? Takfo uba etzlo kinao. If he grabbed him, right, and he brings him towards him, he's going to acquire him. Kerao, but if he called him and he came to him, he doesn't acquire him. Bishamatana didan. I understand according to our Tana minta diita mentalteloktan. We didn't mention anything to do with metaltalim, with movable objects. Deleta metaltelektani. That means only things that have to do with metaltalim we didn't learn. But if it doesn't have to do with metaltalim, we learned it. Elaletana bara. But according to the other Tana, nitim meshicha. What do you learn meshicha? Right? Which means, right, that if you're going to tell me now, right, our Tana was talking about things that anything with metaltalim. So that's why our Tana didn't mention meshicha. Why didn't it mention meshicha? Because metaltalim is meshicha. But the other Tana that says that it does work by chalipin, why doesn't he say chalipin and also meshicha? If you're already bringing things that do work by metaltalim, bring down also meshicha, not only in chalipin. So answers the Gemara, kiktani, when do we learn this? Minta dihita, something which is also in karka and also metaltalim.
You can't draw land,
right? Here. Which is going to be chalipin. But meshicha, metaltalim, there is, karka there's not. And that's why I didn't mention. Meaning it. Something that's in both, also in land, and also metaltalim, we brought it down. What is that? Chalipin. Chalipin could be done with both. He says, but meshicha, You can't do Mashiach then. How do you take a land and you draw it forth? How do you pull it towards you? It doesn't work. So because of that, we didn't bring it down. Okay? Fine. So it says the Gemara, Kate said, what's the case? So if you grabbed him and you brought him towards you, you acquired him. If you called him and he came towards you, no. If you called him, no. We learned to the bright. How do you do the acquiring of an animal that you give him over? Even if you grabbed it with its parsa, with its leg, or bisara, with its hair, with the saddle, with the burden on it, with the what do you call the thing in the mouth?
Bit.
The what?
Bit.
The bit, right? Ubazug with the bell, you're going to acquire it. Keitzad, how do you do this? You call it and it comes. Or shikisha, you hit it and it comes running towards you. Kevan shakra yad rega, once it starts moving, you acquire it. Until it goes the full length. Mara is asking that now it's saying that calling works. How does that work then? So Amri, so they said, Behema daita de marazla. He says an animal goes on the dot of the master because it doesn't have its own dot, and therefore it's considered that the fact that you actually come and you called it, it's like you're pulling it towards you. But the Eved, an Eved has its own mind. So therefore, if you're going to call him, it doesn't go on its own because he's going on his mind. He's not going on yours. So therefore, so therefore, when you call him a slave, it's not considered good if he comes on his own and you called him because he's going on his own mind. But an animal that going on his own mind is kilu that you're dragging it forth because he's only going because of you, because you're the master.
So slave, an acquisition act is no good? Calling them? I mean, you have to grab him and move him?
Pull him forth. So Amr Rashi says, Eved Katan is like a bema. A small slave is like an animal. Why? But since he doesn't have that, so he's coming just because you're calling him. So therefore, you acquire him also just because I'm calling him. Tana Rabbanan, we learned in a Braita. Keitzad b'chazaka. How do you do chazaka on an Eved Kanani? Hitilo minalo. If you untie the shula, he says, he took his utensils after him to the bathhouse. He took off his clothing. He washed him. Sacho, he anointed him with oil. Right, gerdo, he comes and he was like peeling off. I don't know how you say it in English. Scraping off, right? So he says over here, he'd be shop, got him dressed, he puts on the shoes, he comes and picks him up. Any of these things, he acquires them. Chazaka is not any better than Agba always works. Meaning when you come and you take something, you pick it up. When you pick it up, you acquire it. That always works. So my comment, what does that mean exactly? Ravashi says, if he picked up his master, he acquires him. But if the master picks him up, he doesn't acquire him. Which means that it does work, which means that it does help a kinyan chazaka to acquire the eved, since what?
Yeah, looks like it's supposed to be the best way
of doing a kinyan. Yeah, doing a kinyan. So it says here, you just told me now, that if the Eved is going to come and pick up the master, he's going to acquire him. Maybe you could have relations with a Shivcha Kananit.
Why are you bringing up cohabitation?
Because basically you're going to tell me it's like a chazaka.
What?
Right? It's like a
proprietary act?
Yeah, it's like it's something that we're trying to say. It's like a chazaka. So if a person is going to, maybe he acquires her through that. So answers the Gemara, only when one of them is benefiting and one of them is
like her lifting him because he's on top of her.
So he comes and he says, but here, which means like this. By relations, they both benefit. They both enjoy. When somebody picks somebody else up, one of them is suffering. The guy's heavy. I have to pick him up. He's not benefiting. So one's benefiting and one's suffering. That's when you acquire through chazakah. But if both of them are benefiting, which is through cohabitation, that they both enjoy the relations, so therefore it doesn't work. Okay? Fine. Kikamer is fine. Then it says, Shelo kedar kamai. What happens if he has relations with her? Not the normal way. Anal, through the back. So now she's not benefiting. So you're right. So he's benefiting and she's suffering. So Michael Meiman, maybe Bemet she gets ana. That's number one. Meaning sometimes a woman does benefit and she enjoys, even though it's like this. Furthermore, all the same halachot apply to both. So whatever applies to the front also applies to the back, so therefore it doesn't work. Such a thing. Okay? Rabbi Yehuda and Indua. Rabbi Yehuda from Kush, right? Ger she'en lo, right? Yurshin hava. was a ger that he didn't have any Yorshin. Chalash, he became sick. Almar Zutra Shulebes, he wanted to ask how was he doing. He said it was very, very bad. So what happened? Amar Le'Leavdeh, he went and he told the Zevet Kenani of Rabbi Yehuda, Shlof li b'sanai v'atminu lebetah. Take off my shoe and bring it to my house. So basically what happened is Mar Zutra wanted that the second that Rabbi Yehuda passes away, the Eved is serving Mar Zutra, and then immediately with the death of Rabbi Yehuda, he acquires the Eved with Kinyan Chazakah. Everyone understood what happened?
He has to be a
One
private,
more time.
Yeah.
One more time.
Rabbi Yehuda, before he was dead or after he is dead?
One second. Rabbi Yehuda was a get. Rabbi Yehuda had remember that a get, if they don't have any family, right? So then what happens? So anybody takes it. What happens is, comes Mar Zutra, he visits him. He realizes that the guy's going. He's going to be gone. So he comes and he tells the Eved Kenani that he has, he comes and he tells him, listen, take my shoe and bring it to my house. Because when you're going to come and you're going to do that, if he dies right now, whatever in these few seconds, he's doing a work of taking the shoe to my house, I acquire him automatically. So that's what he was doing. So Ika de Amri, so some people say Gadolava, that Eved was Gadol. He was above Bar Mitzvah, and then he was Bar Kinyan. So therefore, why? Because if he didn't have an Adon for one moment, he would have been Zochet to himself from Hefker. So because that Mar Zutra wanted to make sure that every single second, he's still serving him until the death. So therefore, at the moment of the death, he's already serving Mar Zutra. So he
acted before he was dead.
Yes, thing, yes. But he's already a Gofet.
But he is owed the other one first.
Right, but the entire time he's doing this. So since the entire time
I know, but
it's a continuing. Yeah, so therefore the second
time is expired. Otherwise he goes free.
Exactly, he goes free. And that's what he did.
We carried in the money.
We're just going to get to the two dots. It's another 3 lines. And some people say Katanava. Really, Be'emet, he was a minor. And not like a Bashaul. The Tanya was going to write a Ger Shemet, Ubizbizu Yisrael Nechasav. So came Israel, they took everything Hefker. Vayubayin Avadim, there was Avadim. Beng Dolim Tadim, Kanu Atzman, they become free. So he says, Bashaul says, Gedolim, they acquire themselves free. But Ktanim, anybody that grabs them, they acquire them. Okay, and that's what we're saying over here. Okay, have a wonderful day, B'ezras Hashem.